Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to 2023. I'm excited to talk about some of the books that I have read the past couple weeks, and let's just jump into the books. So I picked up the book The Spy and the Traitor, The Greatest Espionage Story of the Cold War by Ben McIntyre, and this is following in the middle of the Cold War, a senior KGB officer who is actually spying for MI6. And this kind of gives his background, what caused him to betray his country, what happened after, and also there are some tales of other spies for the other side that are thrown in. And I thought this was super interesting. I learned about the time period. I probably wouldn't, I know some people said that this was riveting and edge of your seat. I thought it was fine. I learned some stuff. Was it my favorite ever? No, but if I want to know about this subject, this was very good for what it was about. So I don't have a lot to say about it. If you're interested, it was a pretty good read, but probably isn't going to make it into my favorite books of the year kind of thing, but still, solid read. So the next book is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, and I have been on hold for this book since the beginning of August. Everybody wants to read this book, and I can see why. I never watched iCarly, so I didn't really have any background on who she was, but I'd heard so many good things about this book from so many people, and I had to pick it up. I thought that it was a really good memoir. I mean, it's always a little strange. Something must have happened that's crazy when someone very young writes a memoir, right? But this is talking about her life as a child star and about the abuse that she suffered at the hands of her mother. And just kind of her coming to terms with things. I thought it was really well done, very interesting. I did appreciate, I think, Shelly Swearingen mentioned that it could be triggering for eating issues, and I thought that that was a good warning to put on this book, because a lot of the things that that Jeanette dealt with were eating disorder related, and it could be a little triggering. Super interesting. I did enjoy it, but I also do feel like where she wrote the book in her life, she is still in the thick of it in some ways, and I would be interested to know how she looks back on more current times after 5-10 years, a little more time for healing and understanding, because I do feel like she wrote the book where she was just seeing where things went wrong and understanding what wasn't right in her childhood. And so, I mean, I would be interested to know what she feels about this book as time goes on and as she heals. So I picked up the book The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, and I had low expectations, mostly because this is a story about a woman who works in a bookstore who is being haunted by her least favorite customer. So I was a little like, what is this plot going to be about? Is it going to be that good? I was a little skeptical. The way the book started out with our main character, Tookie, being sent to jail, I wasn't sure what was happening. I was fully prepared to just like give up. I was like, I'll give it a fair shot. This ended up being a 5-star read for me. I thought that it really ended up exploring some really important issues. This book ended up being really well done. There were a lot of really important themes, and it just came together in a really beautiful way. It had some talks about what do we owe the dead, and also how do we construct our identity? Is it based on people? Is it on our ancestors? Is it just the story, the narrative that we tell ourselves? It had a lot going into that. If you like reading, it really had, elements of just talking about books. She works in a bookstore. She loves books, and that was really fun. And also, there were some in-depth things on injustice and like a commentary on the justice system and policing in the United States. And I thought there were so many elements that came together really beautifully through such a, I don't know, I felt like the plot was a little strange for me, and I really loved how it came together. So I thought this was really beautifully done, and I do recommend it. Like, I ended up giving it 5 stars. Now, this next book was thanks to Brandon at Brandon's Bookshelf, and if you've watched anything on his channel, you know that he reads a lot of philosophy, and this book was Humankind, A Hopeful History by Rutger Bregman. And I really enjoyed this book. So what it made me think of, and it's even referenced in this book a few times, is the book Sapiens, and I didn't really like Sapiens because I expected it to be more of a history of humans, right? To maybe more historical and more factual, and it ended up being very much a philosophy book. Now, knowing that, going into Humankind, A Hopeful History, it also ended up being more of a philosophy book. But I did like it more. It's definitely on the more positive side and focuses on how humans are generally good, and they are, and it kind of systematically takes down some of the studies that say that humans are selfish, and shows that no, in general, we can see that humans, when faced with stresses, put other people first and help the people around them. And so I thought that it was a really nice read in that way. I mean, philosophically, I'm not super into philosophy books, but I did think the philosophy in it was good. And what I liked about the philosophy in it is that I found it useful to my own personal life. And that's what I look for in a book like that, because sometimes you think, oh yes, that philosopher knows human nature, knows this, and how is it actually affecting your day-to-day life? You know, like, what is it actually, is it making your life better or worse if you subscribe to those ideas? And I thought that this book really had some concrete ways that I could make my life better and happier. And I really appreciated that. I liked the idea that you can look at people as generally good, and some ways to do that are to, you know, not read the news all the time, because generally that's not showing you an accurate picture of people. It's showing you over sensationalized and a false narrative of what people are actually like. It talked about how we need to be more trusting, and some people are worried that they are going to get taken advantage of. But if that's not happening to you every once in a while, you're not being trusting enough. And you should be looking for the good in people, because that's where change really happens. It talked a lot about how the answer to problems of prejudice isn't divisiveness, it's having more contact, more time with more diversity in order to help everyone understand different worldviews. Like, so while maybe you could argue that this book may have cherry-picked data to fit a specific narrative, I found the data that was shared to be very interesting, and the philosophy overall to be very useful and uplifting. And it was written in a fun and accessible sort of way. So I really did enjoy this one. If I hadn't read both of these, if you haven't read Sapiens or Humankind, I would put both of them together, read them both, and then you can kind of compare and contrast, because I thought that they were similar ideas of books, but the outcome, like, I really appreciated this one more. But it has been a long time since I've read Sapiens, so maybe I'm misremembering, but I did really enjoy it. So if you have read either of those, let me know, because I would love to know what you think of them. So yesterday I finished the book American Baby, A Mother, a Child, and the Shadow History of Adoption by Gabrielle Glaser. And this is following the story of Margaret Earle. And she was a teenager when she became pregnant, and it is following her story as well as her son's story, and how she fought to try to find him, and their eventual reconciliation. And I thought it was super interesting to look at the history of adoption throughout the United States. If you know anyone who's been adopted, or you're thinking of adoption, or any of those things, I think that this is like one of those necessary books. I think you will learn a lot, and even things that you knew happened, putting it all together in one book makes the picture clearer. You know, like you've got all the little pieces and putting it all together, like, oh yeah, that's the reality of how these women giving birth were never helped with their trauma, how kids were being taken away and without the proper consent of their mothers. And, you know, like it was very interesting to see kind of that human rights issue and the rights of adoptees to know who their birth parents were. And isn't that a human right? And it still isn't something that everyone has access to. And so I thought that it was a very interesting look at history as well as current human rights issues. So yeah, I do recommend it. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I thought it was super interesting and a very human story. So those are the books I've read the past couple of weeks. I had some really good ones, and I'm very interested to hear what you've thought of these books, if you've read them. Oh, I forgot to say, I read the book American Baby on the advice of the channel Teacup the Storyteller. And I love her channel, and it is so sweet, and I just really appreciated this recommendation. But thank you for coming along with me. I will see you all on the next one.